Dungeon Masters! Are you making one massive mistake while creating NPCs? A mistake that is preventing your players from truly loving the characters that you've made to populate and interact with in your fantasy worlds? Hey, I'm gonna demonstrate this mistake for you real quick. I'm gonna give you 2 examples. Let me know down in the comments while you're watching if you can guess what the mistake is.
After a long day's journey, you've ascended to the top of Chaos Mountain. A shadowy figure stoops outside of a hut constructed of various bones. As you approach, he introduces himself.
Yes, you have found me, Verasnik Nermindor. I am the great Necromancer of Chaos Peak.
Did you notice what I did wrong? What the mistake was? No? All right, you got one more chance, one more example. Here we go.
The party's footsteps crunch leaves on the forest floor. You see a woman turn to you, and you think that this beautiful creature is the druid you've been seeking out. She introduces herself to the party.
Oh hey, Dukiss mornings to like all of you guys. My name is Nephistica Yokal Vizrium. The forest, I've been like listening and tuning in, and it tells me that y'all need some of my onion knights. Like a whole little army of my little tasty babies.
Okay, in case you're still guessing, let me spell it out for you. These characters have terrible and hard to remember names. Hey, don't believe me? Stay to the very end of the video and I'll prove it. All right, the fix is simple. We're gonna rename these characters. I'm going to let you peek behind my Dungeon Master screen so you can sort of see my creative process and what I do when coming up with names for my NPCs, and hopefully it'll work just as well for you.
Greetings, adventurers. 'Tis I, Mortimer Dusk, the mighty Necromancer of Chaos Peak. What do you fools want with me? You're disturbing my evening conversations with my mistress, Scalandria.
Better? I think so. Let's take a look at that Druid. I think we can do better with her name as well. Let's go.
I'm Morgan Maplewood, Druid of this forest. And I've been listening to it, and it tells me that you are in deep need of an army. And I'm here to support you with some tasty little onion knights. Whoa, check him out. Look at his little leg. Oh, he's ferocious.
Like the video, it helped us grow the channel.
In both instances, I've completely gotten rid of the hard to pronounce, never gonna remember names that have too many vowels. They have apostrophes in there. I've gotten rid of all of that crap. I've gone ahead and replaced them with names that sound more appropriate to their character classes, like Druid and Wizard/Necromancer. I'm gonna show you what I did with the Necromancer first. Mortimer is a name that subconsciously will get your players thinking about the words mortician or maybe rigor mortis. Now, I've done this on purpose. I want this subtle word association to help this NPC's name stick in your players' brains. Don't be surprised when one of your players decides to call this guy Morty for short. I've also done this on purpose. This is because Rick and Morty is hugely popular, and I want your players to be able to associate the name of this NPC with something that they're already familiar with. And who knows, maybe this fun-loving Necromancer prefers to go by Morty instead of Mortimer. That's perfectly fine. Change that up on the fly.
Hey, Morty, let me ask you a question real quick.
Pro tip, if you're looking at your players and they're constantly asking you, oh, hey, how do you spell that? What was that NPC's name again? Can you spell that one more time? If they're constantly doing that, you did it wrong. You made a terrible NPC name. Destroy it, scratch it, kill off that NPC, they suck. All right, let's take a look at that druid and see if we can punch up her name, fix it a little bit. I gave her the name Morrigan, which is from Irish and Celtic mythology. It's a name that is very commonly associated with witchcraft, war, and death. Now, I've done this on purpose because I want savvy players to pick up on this. If they've heard of Morrigan, if they're aware of the mythology of this character, then maybe they know that this NPC that they're just meeting for the first time isn't someone that they should fully trust. This might be a little bit metagamey, but if my players are savvy enough to pick up on that, kudos to them. The second thing I did with this druid was I made her surname more druid sounding. Maplewood might be the name of her druidic circle, and they covet this type of wood to make their staves and their wands. It just sounds more naturey, it sounds more druidic. Your players should immediately make the connection between Forest Druid and Morrigan Maplewood. Again, this is all done so that it'll help them remember the characters that you're bringing to life in your games. Why? Why does this matter? It makes all the difference in the world, if you ask me. If your players immediately find your NPCs to be boring and can't even be bothered to remember their names, then why the hell are they going to go on quests for them, listen to their advice, interact with them at all? The very first thing that they're going to do, that very first impression, is going to be their name, and it's going to be how they act towards the party. So you have 2 shots right off the bat to nail this and make it a character that your party is going to really connect with. I'm going to give you one last narrative example. See if you can follow along, and maybe this has happened to your party. You're sitting in a Moss Eisley-esque cantina, and you're supposed to be meeting a contact there named Quabo Remerex. He's supposed to have information on the location of a lost relic. You arrive early, hoping to scout out the bar and make sure that this isn't a trap. While scanning the room, the party notices ne'er-do-wells, thieves, and bandits of all kinds. You happen to mention in a corner you see a particular goblin that is gambling and laughing. The party is immediately drawn to this goblin. They're a little tired of waiting for Quabo. As a dungeon master, you didn't actually have a name for this goblin, as he was basically just window dressing for this bar. In your haste, you blurt out that the goblin's name is Farty McToots. You immediately regret this decision. Your players will most likely fall in love with Farty and go so far off the rails, forget about Quabo, forget about that quest. They are now all in on Farty McToots, this wonderful gambling, thieving, dirtbag goblin that you just happen to create out of circumstance and by mistake. And he is now your party's favorite NPC in this entire world. You better be prepared to roll with all of that, because Farty McToots is the fucking man. All right, if you absolutely have to have a very difficult to sound out and pronounce name for one of your NPCs, I suggest doing the following. Scribble that name down on an index card and put the phonetic pronunciation underneath the name and hand that to your players. Don't expect your players to just gobble up your lore just because you're the dungeon master. It is up to you to put in the effort to make sure that the world you're creating, the characters you're creating, all of it is fun and interesting. Your players do not have to automatically nibble on your plot hooks and interact with your NPCs. If they find it boring, they're going to go looking for something else that's interesting to them as a party. Bottom line, don't give your NPCs boring and hard to pronounce, hard to remember names. It's a dungeon master sin that is very easily remedied. I truly hope you take this advice to heart and that it helps you out in your next campaign or one-shot. Pop quiz! You made it to the very end of the video. Can you remember the names of those 2 NPCs from my original examples? No? If you can't remember them after a short YouTube video like this, how do you expect your players to remember them for an entire campaign? Think about that.